because I often use percentages of effort in describing workouts and in writing workouts, I thought I'd record a quick start guide to using heart rate. The reason we use heart rate in training at all is because of its close correlation to percentages of VO2 max. And VO2 max is how much oxygen you can consume per kilogram per body weight. And at your max of that, you can go faster, but you can't consume any more oxygen. The reason that's important is because we know very predictably at every percentage of your VO2 max what training effect will occur. So because we can't really use VO2 in real time while we're training, we can use heart rate, and that has a close enough correlation to where we can dial in heart rates and achieve certain training effects. So we're interested in 60 to 100%. Anything below 60%, you're probably not breathing hard enough to blow out a candle, so we won't even worry ourselves with that. But as you go up, different things will happen. And what we know is that when we're training at 60 to 70%, we're primarily building endurance, or it's a recovery run, or for some other reason that we need to take it easy. So that's 60 to 70%, that's where a lot of long runs will be. When we get to 75 to 85%, that is typically building stamina. So those are stamina quality workouts that there's a huge range to those, but one of the most typical is a steady state run where you're doing 3 to 5 miles at 75 to 85%. A lot of threshold work is at the top end of that, close to 85%. And that's one of the ways that I gauge if I think somebody's heart rate numbers are correct is how do you feel at 85%? It should have a certain feel to it. And if it feels way too easy or way too hard, I know our numbers probably aren't quite right. When we get to 90%, now you're going anaerobic and things are becoming very difficult and not sustainable. So how I describe these, 100% is fast, hard, and is unsustainable, and there better be a finish line coming in a hurry. At 95%, it's very hard and you're on borrowed time. You can do it for a little while, but you're not going to feel this way if you still have several miles to go. You may feel that way towards the end of, well, a lot of races, but certainly 10K and below. You're not going to be able to average that for a full 10K and maybe not for a full 5K unless you're incredibly well trained and incredibly mentally tough. At 90%, it's hard and you're only there when you mean to be there. That's another way that I check numbers. If somebody said they felt comfortable at 90%, I know their numbers aren't good. You're never comfortable at 90%, not even very well trained runners. They might be able to withstand it better, but they're not comfortable. 85% is hard. This is really running, but it is sustainable. That's the point where if I ask you how you are right now, you're fine. How much further can you go? I don't know, because you're a little bit on that edge, but it is sustainable. Most people can do that for at least 30 minutes, usually an hour, and well-trained runners will average that for maybe a half marathon. 80% is comfortably hard. You feel like you're really running, but it's not that big of a deal once you get there. And that's where a lot of, especially the second half of a marathon might be run. 75%, if we use an ambiguous term like moderate, that's typically where that lands. 70% is pretty comfortable, unless your legs are just too tired to move. 70% is certainly comfortable for your lungs. 65% is easy. And if your legs feel good, it's hard to keep your heart rate that low. At 60%, you're jogging. Your legs are either really tired, really fried, or you're doing a recovery jog of some sort. So when we think about in terms of racing, mile races are 95 to 100%. And again, you won't be at 100% until the end because you can't sustain that. But you might average 95%. 5K to 10K is typically at 85 to 90. 5K might get up to 95% for a couple of minutes anyway, for most people. Half marathon, 80, 85%, somewhere in there for well-trained runners. If the distance is still an issue for you, you won't average that high. For a marathon, we're dealing typically with 75 to 80%. You might finish higher than that, but you can't sustain it for that much of that distance. Again, if the distance is a big deal and you're just trying to finish a marathon, it might be down 65, 70, and top end at 75%. So those things vary with somebody's fitness level and the mileage they go in with and all kinds of factors. To use heart rate, you have to have good numbers. You need to know your maximum heart rate. The best predictor I know of is 220 minus your age, but it's a bell curve. If it doesn't fit you, you're always running too fast or too slow, but that will kind of get you in the ballpark anyway. All the other formulas that I've ever seen end up getting really close to that same number. So I'm not sure if that's the math department or the physiology department coming up with those formulas. Equipment. Not all heart rate monitors are equal, even within the same brand. Some straps, some optical readers are better than others. So I like to look at downloads. And if somebody's doing a workout where they're alternating hard and easy running and the heart rate isn't moving with that effort and with the pace as we would expect, and it's not instantaneous, but it should be pretty quickly, then I'm not going to trust that heart rate monitor. And then there's other factors. If somebody's not in shape at all, their heart rate will get up really high at a really low perceived exertion. So we don't really do this because it'll take forever to get into shape. If you're sick, your heart rate is high. If you're dehydrated, your heart rate is high. If it's hot outside, even if you're not dehydrated, blood distribution is different because it's trying to cool you, so it goes closer to the skin, so heart rate is higher. So there's a number of reasons why heart rate is a great tool, but there's reasons why we say, okay, not today. I'm not going to use this number today because of whatever factor may be at play that day. So hopefully that helps. That's just a quick overview. I've put out lots more information on heart rate training if you want it, and including a podcast that I was on, and we talked about why heart rate training doesn't suck if you do it right, and lots of other things. So, but I hope that helps get you started.